Hello, everyone, and welcome to our next hit of Rugby Nation. Beth Newman is somewhere on the screen, and alongside her, above her, below her, somewhere is Aussie Sevens coach Tim Walsh. Walshy, great to have you with us. I can't believe it's been this long since we've got you on Rugby Nation, and you are sitting in the best chair we've had on the show yet. That's amazing.
I've got this especially for you, Shawnee. I was hoping you'd open up with that. Yeah,
How good is it?
It's our sevens trainer of the day, trainer of the week chair. I've trained pretty well this week, so I've decided to show it off. So it's basically jerseys from all the past sort of 15 years, donated by captains and players who've won events and played in benchmark events like Rio and everything. So it's a bit of a past and a legacy, I guess, to the privilege to sit on it.
It's a stunning piece of furniture, Beth Newman.
Yeah, it's fantastic. And how does it work? Does it get sent around to people's houses, or is it a ceremonial sit down at the end of each week? How does that work?
Yeah, it's just in the team meeting. So the performance managers of each week decide when to award it, whether it be daily or weekly. So it's basically their decision, and it's front and center in the team room. And whoever's on it gets up and shakes the hand of the next recipient, and they sit down and take their spot.
Walshy, we have to transition away from your little comfortable lazy boy style setup there. And Beth, I know that we normally kick off our sort of new stuff with you leading the charge on this front, but I find it might be a little bit tricky for you to have to delve into this given the nature of what dropped via your writing essay, Rugby.com.au, and what has happened as a result at Rugby Australia, and large part to COVID-19, but a bunch of other stuff that's contributed to it as well. So the update off the back of Beth's reporting yesterday, 47 staff of 142 made redundant at Rugby Australia. That included 30 casual contractors who were terminated immediately. Senior staff asked to take a 5% pay cut, and $5.5 million in wages set to be saved as a result. Beth, I saw an outpouring of fellow journalists and people in media upset by your imminent move. How are you this morning, and what does it look like going forward for you?
I didn't want to make this about me, but yeah, I mean, it's a sad day for Australian rugby on Monday. You know, so many people in the game across all parts of the organisation, obviously finishing their time in rugby and you know, across all industries, you know, media and sport. And yeah, I think, you know, personally, I'm doing okay. I think it's an opportunity in media and sport in the coming months. There's, you know, so many things going on, but the game's going to go through some tough times, and you know, a lot of people are going to be hurting today. And you know, I think there's always commentary when you talk about sporting administrations. You've seen it with the NRL, with Rugby Australia the last few months, you know, talking about bloated head offices and things like that. But I think, you know, it's important to remember that in these sort of times, that everybody who's out of a job or, you know, in a tough situation, you know, isn't just a number. You know, it's a real person, and you know, it's important to remember that going forward, and hopefully, you know, rugby will turn a corner, and we'll be, you know, there'll be some exciting things to come.
I know that you are reluctant to touch on it, Beth, but we have to because of the contribution that you make. Let's shift now into the footy news across the last couple of weeks, or the last week rather. Sunwolves won't take any part in Super Rugby domestically here in Australia. It's set to kick off July 3. What do we both make of that? I'm kind of sad that the mighty Moondogs won't be fronting up.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's not a surprise, is it, with all the travel restrictions, and, you know, they're trying to get players from Japan and Australia and New Zealand to come together, and I think they have to do the 2-week quarantine and then try and play, you know, 2 weeks after that. So probably not a surprise that that's the case, but yeah, a little bit sad, because it also, you know, kind of means the end of the Sunwolves in after they were kind of told they weren't going to be part of the 2021 Super Rugby competition. So it's all Aussie.
Yeah,
what do you make of that, Walshy? What do you think that competition's going to look like? And can we touch on, I can't remember if it was your idea or your assistant coach, Stephen Hoyle's, to have what could have potentially been a Barbarian Sevens outfit, just throw a couple of tight forwards in there from some of the super clubs, and we could have had ourselves a replacement for the Sunwolves.
That's right. Yeah, we were brainstorming all sorts of ideas, and Aussie's always great for our a creative idea, but also for the good of the game. So yeah, we were looking and plotting and trying to lobby for the opportunity to play. Obviously, the Sevens boys, as per the Sunwolves, it's every international competition. It's very, very unlikely. So, if not impossible logistically. So I think the Super Rugby comp in Australia is fantastic for so many reasons, and it would have been great to slot in a Sevens team with borrowing a few type fives. So yeah, whether it been the sixth team or the Sunwolf license, because I know Beth was just saying there's a lot of Australians that were playing in that team. So not to be, but yeah, I thought it was a great opportunity there.
Who do you reckon would have maybe stepped up really, really well in a Super Rugby comp from your squad?
All of them. No, I mean, some of them don't have any, like some of them are career Sevens players, and obviously some of them are future Wallabies. So there's a mixture there, and I'm sure we'll get onto it in later questions. But there's been a fair bit of interest in the boys now because they're free to go and play some Super Rugby and certainly club rugby. So we sort of switched our focus to a bit of 15s for the next few months at least, anyway.
So we are going to touch on the Sevens and deep dive on that in just a second. But just to recap there with the unlikely event of a Sevens Barbarian team taking to the field, those guys will go back to club rugby. Is that right? The blokes who are part of your squad will head back to Sydney, Brisbane, Canberra?
Yeah, I mean, we prefer them to be in Sydney because we don't want to neglect Sevens at all. We want to be the best in the world at certain aspects. So we don't have the urgency that we're going to play New Zealand and Fiji and Canada in sort of 6 weeks' time. But we want to be, when we do return, we want to be fit, strong and healthy and be world's best at a few key areas. So, you know, whether it be combining it with the club rugby and then training 2 or 3 times a week here on specific skills and Sevens sort of prowess, and then keeping mentally stable and in an environment and playing footy that's only going to benefit us. So that cohesion and mutually beneficial gains of Sevens and 15s and committing them to a season as well. And then, as I said before, you know, there's a fair few blokes that have been approached by the super clubs to go and play in that comp as well. And then I've no doubt as that season drags on that if there are injuries, you know, there'll be some standout performers in the club comps that will be Sevens boys, and hopefully they get another opportunity to show their wares to you know, Wallaby selectors and myself for the future of Sevens.
And the other interesting discussion that's been around this Super Rugby comp is a bit more talk about law changes and that sort of thing, and you know, a lot of talk about making things faster and more exciting, which, you know, I'm sure as a Sevens coach, you know, makes you pretty excited to see maybe 15s take on some of the things that Sevens has. Is there anything, Walshy, that you reckon, you know, could really translate from Sevens to 15s that maybe isn't already in the longer format of the game?
I haven't gone into too much thought around exact rule changes, but it certainly does excite me around, you know, the style of rugby that wants to be seen and wants to be viewed and, believe it or not, played as well. That it certainly fits the Seven environment, and that's what we've been sort of always striving towards in terms of our vision of the program, is that we're not the biggest and fastest team, but we're going to be the smartest and most skillful and the fittest. So, you know, I think it's the Aussie way, and I think, you know, Sevens players that will transition after the Olympics and over the next few months will certainly show the benefits of that, and sort of, I think, fits the future vision of Rugby Australia. So I think it's bringing us closer together and mutually beneficial, and learning a lot more off each other, and making sure that, you know, whether it be a pathway or a career, that they're on a really good pegging and they can support each other in every way.
Let me ask you too this. Having secured the Western Force as another team in this domestic competition, what are your thoughts on embracing some of those global rapid rugby rules that were obviously brought in and given a tick by World Rugby to be used through those season and a bit of global rapid rugby games? Having called a couple of them, I thought that they worked quite well, and for whatever reason, it just felt quicker. What's your take?
Yeah, I mean, I've probably only seen a little bit of rapid rugby over the couple of years, but yeah, you're right, Shawnee. It definitely is exciting, and you hope that. I mean, they're already talking about scrum clocks and that sort of thing being introduced into this Super Rugby AU competition, and just little things like that kind of create the illusion even that things are quicker, even if maybe they're not. It just makes it a bit more exciting and creates more of an entertaining product. So, and I think at the end of the day, just having an open mind about innovation is so important at this point in time. So many people have spoken about it, Super Rugby coaches and that sort of thing, about, this is an opportunity for rugby to really refresh itself, and, why not?
Yeah, it's the evolution of rugby and keeping up with it. Like, you look at videos, I know, on the TV these days, there's been heaps of the games in the past, and you just see how it's evolved. So absolutely, we have to innovate and continue to improve the game so we don't get left behind. But that's what is being demanded at the moment is more excitement, possibly less time, so the game's quicker, and that the shorter forms or the more high octane entertaining games are what's wanted. So I think there's 15s is certainly able to produce that product by making changes. Then of course you've got sevens just trying to bring that back into the conversation. It's a great product. You've got 2020 cricket. They've all tried, or every other sport is trying to have this shorter form of the game to make it entertaining or attracting to audiences. And we've got the product right there. We've had it for 20 years. So whether you merge the two or change the rules a bit or whatever, but there's some opportunities there, and I think this is COVID, as shocking as it is, it's a catalyst to innovate and create.
Well, that is the perfect segue into us going into the Sevens program in a little more depth. Obviously, you and I have been grounded over the last little bit with COVID postponing not only the Olympics, but we had London and Paris, Hong Kong, Singapore all shifted. We got through 6 events, which has meant that Tokyo pushed to next year. How has that, actually, let's start off with, how has that changed things for you guys in terms of preparing for Tokyo, preparing for that Olympic gold medal in 2021?
We always try to look at things as a positive, and there's a lot of obviously obstacles and barriers and ups and downs before them. But as a whole, we've got another year to prepare. I've got another year to be a better coach. So we're thinking, that's a good thing. But then we have to save the program, maintain the core group of the players, keep ourselves motivated. All those little things that everybody's dealing with on a personal level and as a high performing team as well. So obviously there's a lot to happen between now and then, but ultimately, we tell the players, what is it that you want? And a lot of them set out to this journey, whether it be 3 years ago or 6 years ago, that they want to go and be Olympic champions, and they might not have achieved it at the first one, continued on or come back to this one. So keep the faith, and nothing's really changed apart from time, and time's something we don't usually get. So it's we've got another year to be better. And in reality, you look at the average age of all the teams, we're still very young, but we're in a prime position to be peaking. And we believe we were going to peak in Tokyo, but this is in Tokyo 2020, but now it's another one to be better.
Where are you guys at in terms of trying to get some competitive games or competitive sevens tournaments going as well? Because, I mean, with no international travel, it's kind of probably unclear what could happen before the Olympics, I guess. Yeah,
and that is the unknown, and that's the challenge, to try to keep everybody on board. And how do we get better? And I sort of touched on it before. We've got this plan at the moment to compete and pick up different skills while improving our own. So we've got the 7 specific training here, going to play 15s. So involved in a team, committing to a team and being part of something, not just sort of in and out, but being there. So that keeps you mentally healthy and motivated and charged, and then coming in here. And so when we do return to full practice and tournaments, and we've got a schedule, we've got our program intact, that we're coming fresh and have a clear goal and benchmark of that. So, World Rugby have got to come up with the format, which at the moment is, the World Series. So that's great. And we just got to make sure that our program survives through this tumultuous time and comes out better the other side. But that's what we're confident of happening. But there are obviously a lot of things to happen and lobby and look for investment, because as we all know, and all of us have witnessed it, either personally or as a group, that some bad news is going to happen. It's just how we get through it.
If we step back from an international style tournament, even sort of a Pacific only tournament for the Sevens World, and brought one domestically, so let's say all the state borders open up around September, are there any plans in place, or is there scope potentially to have a national sevens club comp, or just something where we can throw your men back into their format of the game and actually get something generated where guys are playing sevens against one another? It could potentially, I would think, be a great opportunity to get something up and running in that space.
Yeah, do you know some people, Shawnee, that want to broadcast?
Well, how much do we need? How much cash do we need to get it running?
I've asked that exact question, actually, yeah. Look, I think there's tremendous opportunity, but there has to be supply and demand for it, and there has to be some backing behind it. But you look at the borders open, you got the 3 out of the top 4 sevens countries, on our doorstep, Fiji, New Zealand, Australia, are right here, basically ready to play. So there's still an opportunity for that. There is, again, being in that bubble is great, but I talk to the coaches of those respective teams and Samoa quite regularly, and it's certainly on our radar. It's just a matter of when. And if it is November, December, great. If it's earlier and we've got some opportunity, whether it be funding or broadcasting, that want to play it, then certainly we're ready to go. Like, that's it. And the other idea that we've been brainstorming as well was you have the Bledisloe Cup, and there's talks about 4 or 5 of those games being played. We want to have a Bledisloe Cup type sevens tournament, or even a game before and a game after the Bledisloe Cup. And we looked at, I think I did some research. In 1931, Lord Bledisloe, the Governor General of New Zealand, donated the cup, and that's how it became the Bledisloe Cup. So I was thinking Shawnee Maloney could donate a cup.
Sure.
We could call it the Maloney Cup, and basically that could be the legacy of sevens for eternity. Every time there's a Bledisloe Cup, that there's a seventh game before and after the Maloney Cup. What do you think?
Would you know how the Bledisloe Cup holds 38 cans? Mine would hold 68. Well, mate, that's something that I hope that can potentially be looked at. I mean, a curtain raiser between you could have the Aussie men and then potentially the Aussie women up against their respective counterparts from NZ, which would be terrific to see them back on the park. Let's go through some of the players. You have made some squad changes. Beth and I wanted to touch on this particular fella heading down to the Melbourne Rebels, Jarrell Skelton. It must have been hard to lose him to Super Rugby, but can I get a word from you on Jarrell Skelton? I'm a huge fan. Where do you sit?
Yeah, fantastic young player and massive potential in both forms of the game. So his original plan was to go to the Olympics and then head off to the Rebels. So he signed that contract a fair while ago, and because of the delay or the postponement of the Olympics, puts him in a bit of a tight situation, but honouring his contract, and certainly a blessing from us. It could be some work in the future around him having a crack at it, but as it stands, he's concentrating with the Rebels and giving it everything he can there. But what an athlete. I think you could probably put 10 to 15 kilos on him. He's probably the most ripped Samoan bloke I've ever seen. But he's, I think every time you've commentated him, Shawnee, but particularly in that Sydney tournament, he certainly has a bit of X factor as a ball carrier, can hit, plays without fear, and he's got the skills of a basketballer. So pretty handy to have that in the back row of your scrum, but to have those skills. And that's again what we try and do with sevens is you jack of all trades, master of some. So he can turn it over, he can run, he can defend, And he's got the aerial skills as well through, for lineouts and restarts and stuff. So, yeah, really keen to see Jarrell play really well in 15s and hopefully see him in another gold jersey being quality one, if not back with us again at some stage as well.
And I guess in this sort of scenario, like, how has it affected your squad planning? And even, we've seen some guys come back in through the World Series, guys like Sean McMahon and Luke Morahan, and even Samu Karevi, has expressed interest in that sort of thing. Like, how does what's happening now kind of affect, what you see as the squad going forward and what the makeup will be in Tokyo?
Yeah, look, the squad from my makeup didn't really change. Like, we have a really world-class group of players that make up that team, and if they could be complemented with the odd player that's really going to add value. And I know I've gone through all that sort of the formula behind that, but geez, you have to feel for these fellas now. Like, they had these goals to be over there now, and then either stay on and do another one or go to 15s or whatever it is. And like all athletes, their whole sort of their training, I say family, I know it's used a lot, but they travel 4 months of the year together. They're best mates. They, even like not being able to touch, like you've seen rugby blokes, Shawnee, they're high-fiving and cuddling all the time. You think there'd be something going on, but you just sort of take that all away from them. And, the fact they're playing for their country, all that kind of, it's just, it's hard to watch and to motivate. And it's a bloody great big challenge for them and for the whole program, managing up, down, left and right, and my own emotions as well. But nothing's really, in terms of what we're focused on and what my plans are, nothing's massively changed. Obviously there's a lot of stuff in between, but the core, the style, the vision of where we're going remains the same. We just got to maintain, mental stability, motivation, and the desire to go on, which I know they all have. It's just the ups and downs.
Let's assume that the next World Series, we find a vaccine for COVID. We're good to go in Dubai. What might be one thing you would change about the series to shape it in every direction you want, any direction that you want to take it? What might be a change? Just
consistency. Like the way the format was last season was 3 days, 2 days, joint, not joint, number of games, player welfare. It was just all over the shop. And, us as the coaches and the players were struggling to work out who was qualifying and who was doing how to prepare and all that kind of stuff. It was great in terms of having to adapt, but as a viewer and as a product, it sort of diluted a little bit, and I was on the steering committee for the formatting, and there were 3 things that needed to make sure happened, and out of all of them, I think one of them was adhered to. So consistency is the most important. Just so I think consistency not only prevents injuries and whatever, but for player welfare, but consistency for broadcasting, consistency for understanding. It becomes a product that everybody gets. And I think that's where we sort of let ourselves down last year. So definitely consistency would be the number one.
Okay, well, should we normally close out these chats with our guests highlighting a game that they want screened on Rugby.com.au? We might just park that for the moment because I think that Beth's already lined up for this week either the 2001 second test or the 2013 second test. Actually, they're already up and running, aren't they, Beth?
Yeah, so we had the opening Lions test last week. So it was week 1. We're doing like a virtual Lions series. Yeah, so this is week 2. And you get to pick whether it's 01 or 2013, what you want to see.
What would you go with?
Who, me?
Yeah, you get the choice. It's in your court. You can have 01 or 2013.
I think I was at the 2001 one. Was that the British Lions in Brisbane?
No, we don't want to. We don't really want to go back over that because they got pantsed up there in Brisbane.
But
Second
they
test.
won the next two.
Second test was Melbourne, wasn't it, Beth? And then back to Sydney for the third.
Yeah,
I believe second
right.
test
definitely was a win. The 0-1 second test. Yeah,
I really enjoyed watching those old ones and just how far the games come, and even like looking at the size of the jerseys. Like there's these high performance teams, you know, in massive arenas and hot science, and we're wearing these jerseys that are adding another 3 kilos of weight on you and hanging off you. It's classic, but it's very nostalgic, and I absolutely love it. So I'd go 2001.
2001. Okay, that's an easy fit for you. Walsh, we're going to let you get back to trying to plan for tournaments that we don't know where they're going to land. Are you able to tell me if I should be getting the passport dusted off, where I might be heading to next?
Without a doubt, Shawnee.
Where are we off to? Anywhere. I'll take anywhere.
I reckon we'll be Fiji, New Zealand, probably sooner rather than later.
Okay.
And there's even talks of Hong Kong being on. So, yeah.
Well, Hong Kong and Singapore are still, just to recap, still up in the air, but nothing's been decided certainly around Hong Kong and Singapore. So we live in hope that we get to see you back on the sideline, quietly offering words to the Aussie men's sevens team. Beth Newman, we know it's been a tough week for you, but we hope you get through the back end of it okay. We're thinking of you. And Walshy, give our very best to your men as you see them around RA headquarters over the next little bit, and we will see you all again next time right here on Rugby Nation.